Previously on Pretty Little Liars.
Hi guys, it's
Lauren Daisy.
Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing another kind of like plot deep dive for Pretty Little Liars, and we're going to be looking at the Jenna Thing. I feel like the Jenna Thing is such a core part of season 1, and it also is like a core part of the book series as well. It's something that they kind of carried over from the book series, which is really interesting because I feel like as the show goes on, they kind of definitely like split into different directions. So today I'm going to be taking you through everything that happened the night of the Jenna Thing, potential motives for the Jenna Thing, and kind of the aftermath of the Jenna Thing. Then we're also going to look at the end at the book version of the Jenna Thing and kind of the differences and how it played out in the book. So if you want to read the books, you don't want any spoilers, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything until we get to the book section at the end. But yeah, if you are curious to see the comparison between the two and how they kind of handled it in the show versus the book, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the video. So if you ever thought to yourself, what even was the Jenna Thing? Why did it happen? What exactly happened there? We're going to get into it today.
You don't think she'd ever talk about
the Jenna Thing? We made a promise.
The Jenna Thing is the kind of name that the liars gave to the incident where Jenna was blinded by a prank gone wrong by Alison De Laurentiis. Debatable, prank gone wrong, or prank went exactly how she wanted it to go. We're going to talk about that as well. Obviously, Alison was the one that actually did the prank and came up with the idea, but all of the other liars were there and therefore are incriminated in the Jenna Thing. And it's a secret that they're obviously still holding on to when we meet them in the pilot. So what happened that night? So the girls are having a sleepover at Emily's house and they're, trying on clothes and, classic sleepover stuff when Alison tells the girls that she has seen Toby out of, the window watching them. She sees him in, the reflection of the mirror. She turns around and she's obviously very agitated and tells the girls he was spying on us. Now, remember that Emily's house and Toby's house, they are direct neighbors.
I see you!
Who was it?
It was that perv, Toby Kavanaugh.
We do learn later that this was a lie. Alison never saw Toby at the window, and it's never actually confirmed why she said that she did. And I've kind of come up with two kind of possible explanations for this. Firstly, I think it was just an easy tactic to be able to get to Jenna, because obviously Jenna and Toby lived in the same house, so if she made it seem like she was going after Toby, then it wouldn't look like she actually intended to go after Jenna. The second thing is that it could have been like a manipulation tactic on the other girls. So if she was able to convince them that Toby was this creep and all this stuff, if she then later went on to expose the relationship between Toby and Jenna, then maybe the girls would believe her however she kind of chose to spin that story. I think the more likely one is that she wanted to get to Jenna and use Toby as an excuse to be able to do that. She says, we need to put a stop to this creep, and Arya says maybe we should just tell the police, and she's like, no, I'm gonna handle this. So Alison's prank plan is that she's gonna go to Toby's house and she's gonna set off a stink bomb in his garage, because apparently that's where he was used to hang out and stuff. So she's going to go over there, she's going to throw this stink bomb in, and it's just going to kind of stink out the place and, relatively harmless prank, right? The other girls, Arya, Emily, Spencer, and Hannah, they aren't sure about this. They're I think maybe we should just go back, we should tell the cop, we should just tell somebody what happened, this feels a bit much. And Alison, obviously having that hold over all of them and being able to manipulate them and convince them, she convinces them to go ahead with it. And while the other liars don't actually do the prank, they are all still there with Alison stood outside, stood right next to the garage as it happens. Spencer also asks Alison if she is sure that it was Toby that she saw, and Alison says yes. So she has lied not once, like when she said it was Toby, but she is sticking to it and saying yes, it was definitely him when we know that it wasn't. And so she assures them, look, no one's inside the garage, just a harmless prank, it's gonna be fine. So she gets a lighter from Spencer and she lights the stink bomb and opens the garage door, and she quickly looks inside and then throws the stink bomb inside. And she immediately like closes the door and tells the girls to run. And obviously when she looked in there, she would have seen that Jenna was in there. But she doesn't disclose this to the other girls. She just says like, let's like run. Which also, if she didn't know that it was actually a firecracker, I feel like why would she have told them to run? Like if it was just a stink bomb, then surely you would want to like watch the prank happen and be like, oh my gosh, and then like go back into the house. You wouldn't be like panic run. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, the girls are running, and then the stink bomb, which was actually, like I said, a firecracker, explodes in the garage, and the garage ends up catching fire.
Allie, what did you do?
We have to get out of here. Come on, let's go.
So the girls stop and they turn around and they see this big fire and they hear a scream, which we obviously know is Jenna. And because of the explosion and just the brightness, that is what ends up blinding her for the rest of the series. So the girls are like outside while this whole thing is happening and the police are there, and obviously Jenna's being taken away. And Hannah says, look, I feel like we should just go to the cops and just tell them what happened and that it was an accident. And Alison kind of yells at her and belittles her. And Aria is actually the only one to kind of stand up for Hannah, which I thought was interesting because usually in all the flashbacks, it's Spencer that stands up against Alison. So then we see Toby lying to the police and taking the fall and saying that he did it and that he was the one that set the garage on fire. We now know that he did this because Alison went over and blackmailed him, telling him that she had seen the videos of him and Jenna and that she would expose it if he didn't take the fall for her.
I'm sure everybody knows. Didn't I tell you to stay over there and let me take care of this? What did you hear? Nothing.
And thus, that creates the Jenna thing. We have a prank gone wrong by Alison that Aria, Hannah, Spencer, and Emily then become accomplices to because they lied to the police about it and they also allowed Toby to take the fall. So now we're going to have a little look at the aftermath of the Jenna thing. So we obviously see that the girls still feel very guilty and a lot of remorse over what happened. Jenna knows that they were a part of it, or at least she knows that Alison was, so she can kind of assume that the other girls were as well. But they never directly acknowledge it or apologize to her for kind of like fear of incriminating themselves. So Alison ended up buying the girls friendship bracelets that she gives to them at the grill as a kind of way to seal their friendship and, you know, make sure they're all on the same page and this secret never gets out. Which I think was also a really like clever way to taunt the girls when A made a friendship bracelet that said Jenna on it, because the whole kind of origin of the friendship bracelet was to cover up the Jenna thing. So then to have a bracelet with Jenna's name on it, I just thought that was really clever. So Alison then goes and she actually tells Jason about the Jenna thing, even though they all agreed they would never tell anybody. And she tells Jason the same story, but she reverses her and Spencer's roles in it. So she says Spencer was the one that saw Toby. It was Spencer's idea. She was the one that lit the firecracker. She was the one that threw it in. And that Alison was just like a bystander with the other girls.
Got the stink bomb and convinced the rest of the girls to back you up. How you even threatened Toby if he told the truth.
Allison told you that?
Now, again, they don't say why she did this, because at this point, when we find this out, it's Jason and Spencer talking to each other, and Allison is declared dead. So no one ever actually asked her why she did this. But again, as always, I have a theory as to why she did this. I think she knew that Spencer was kind of, in Allison's eyes, getting a bit too big for her boots, and they were starting to argue more. I mean, obviously, we have the confrontation on the night she disappeared, so we knew it was kind of leading up to that, and I think Allison also knew that things were kind of starting to bubble over, because we see the flashback where Allison says to Spencer, "You should tell Melissa about you and Ian," and Spencer says, "Well, if you tell Melissa about me and Ian, I will tell everybody the truth about the Jenna thing."
I will tell everyone the truth about the Jenna thing.
So we know that she's kind of planted the seeds in Allison's head that she will potentially go against the group and that she will expose her if Allison kind of tries anything. And I think she didn't like this. She didn't like that Spencer was getting confident enough to threaten Allison back. So then I think she went and she told Jason, so that if Spencer did come out and say what happened, Jason would then go, "Actually, Allison told me about that ages ago and she said it was your idea." And maybe Allison, thinking she had a strong enough hold on the other girls, they would back Allison up and not Spencer in that situation. And I think Allison does not get enough credit for how crazy, like, manipulative she is. It's insane. Like, she is constantly thinking of everything, setting little traps and planting seeds for everything to kind of go in her favor, and she's always like one step ahead of everyone else. So Jenna ends up keeping quiet about this situation. She obviously knows the truth that it wasn't Toby, but she agrees to go along with it to protect her secret, which is obviously that she was forcing herself onto Toby, and there was a video of it. She didn't want that to come out, and she knew that Allison had it, because Allison goes to her at the school for the blind and threatens her, says, "I have this video and I will expose it if you ever do anything ever again." And even after Allison is gone and presumed dead, she still keeps this secret. She still goes along with it and just is happy to keep this charade up to protect herself. And do you know what is so wild about, like, the aftermath of the Jenna thing? Obviously, the liars seem to show remorse, but they don't want to kind of apologize. I mean, we see that with Aria, that she does start to feel bad for Jenna when they have, like, the pottery class together and stuff, but she doesn't feel like she can say anything. It's so insane that no one ever apologizes to her. And I know that Jenna is, like, she's a villain, and she, obviously, what she did to Toby was absolutely horrific. But it's so crazy to me that these people, well, Allison, blinded her for life. Like, she now cannot see for the rest of her life. And nobody ever says sorry to her for it. It's insane. Like, obviously the liars didn't do it, but they were witnesses. And I just think the person that really owed her an apology was Allison. Because Allison did awful things as well. Not as awful as Jenna. But I think it's so crazy that when Allison returns, they kind of barely interact, when she blinded her for life and kind of was going on this "I'm changed, I'm a different person" kind of vibe, and apologizes to, like, the liars for how she treated them, but she never apologizes to Jenna for actually blinding her. Is that not crazy? Is that not insane?
We've all made mistakes. Remember, I'm still paying for yours.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the potential motives for the Jenna thing, and the one that I think is the most accurate or, like, believable. So first up, we have that Allison was threatened by Jenna. We see this in the first secret, so the Halloween flashback episode. When she first meets Jenna, she can obviously see that she's gorgeous and that, you know, she is a potential contender for dethroning Allison, because she rejects being in her friendship group, and so she's like, well, if she's not afraid of me and she doesn't want to be my friend, then this is a bit of like competition here, like a bit of a rival for me. So I think she then does the firecracker in order to get Jenna kind of out of the way or out of the running for being the new queen bee. I think this is personally the most plausible. I think this is probably why she did it. We know that Allison is very, for someone that is so like confident in herself, she can also be quite insecure about things. And I think when Jenna came onto the scene, she was, threatened by that and by her kind of taking everything that she had built. So to kind of get ahead of that, I don't know if she actually intended to blind her, but she obviously intended to like scare her, knowing that she was in there. So I think it was kind of to like knock her down a few pegs so that she would feel less threatened by her. And Jenna, they never confirm it, but Jenna kind of alludes to that. She definitely says, she writes a paper about what happened to her for Mr. Fitz's class, and she does allude in there that it was intentional and it was not an accident.
Your story suggests that it wasn't an accident.
I wouldn't know.
Also then in the Christmas episode, she says, I said no to being Allison's friend before and it didn't work out for me, so now I'm giving her the correct answer and I'm saying yes. So that is why she's kind of like one of her minions when Allison shows up at the ice ball.
Allison offered to be my friend. I made the mistake of saying no. When she asked me this time, I gave her the right answer.
That's like kind of her way of confirming, look, when I said no to Allison before, she blinded me. So now I'm gonna go along with it. So that's kind of how I interpret it and what I think is the most likely. But I do have two others. So firstly, I have that Allison believed that Jenna was was the person that was taunting her, and she did this to try and stop it. Because we know from the Halloween flashback, that was when Allison first started getting A messages, and come like her disappearance, it's now been a good, 8 months? No, probably even more than that. Like 9 or 10 months since the A messages started. So we know that she is trying to figure out who A is that summer, and so she had Jenna on her list of suspects. So maybe she thought, look, if I do this and I kind of take Jenna out almost, then maybe the A messages will stop. But they didn't. And that's why she then goes and threatens her again at the school for the blind. So that I think is also a kind of likely one. I think it could honestly be either or maybe even a mix of the two. And then thirdly, I have a kind of less likely motive, but one that I actually think could have been interesting if they did go down this route. And it's that she did it to protect Toby, because she and him don't appear to have a bad relationship. Like when she goes to visit him at his house, like, yeah, she kind of like is a little bit, but that's kind of her whole character. But then, she sees his situation with his mom and everything like that. And then obviously she ended up seeing and finding out that Jenna was forcing herself on him. So maybe she did feel for him and wanted to kind of get him out of this situation. And I guess for her as well, it'd be a bit of a two birds, one stone, because she already doesn't like Jenna. So if she gets her out the way, she protects Toby and also in turn kind of betters her own situation with Jenna. I mean, they even meet on the night of her disappearance and he gives her his sweater and he has said that, he has this 901 free at last tattoo. Like he has said him taking the blame actually turned out to be a good thing because it got him away from Jenna. So him and Allison don't have like a bad relationship. And I feel like if she had just, harshly like blamed it on him and all this stuff, why would he then like give her his sweater and stuff? Like, I don't know. I just feel like he was grateful to her for having done that. So that makes me wonder if that was maybe part of the motive all along. I don't know. Let me know out of those three what you think. And obviously you have the fourth motive, which is just she was a menace and just did it because she wanted to. Also, actually, there's a fifth one sort of that I literally just thought of just now. which is, what if she was jealous of Jenna, which we kind of talked about anyway, but also you bring Emily into that, because there's a moment, a brief moment in the Halloween flashback episode where Emily is watching Jenna dance, and there's a bit of eye contact, right, that's going on. And then, you know, Alison comes in and she seems a bit jealous about this and stuff. And so I wonder if maybe Alison, not understanding her feelings for Emily, saw Emily potentially, you know, thinking that Jenna was cute and was like, she can't do that. Like, she can't be Emily's new crush because that's me. So yeah, maybe she decided to take her out because obviously we have the it girl thing and she feels threatened by that, but also she felt threatened by the fact that potentially Emily might like her. So now I've got 5 motives for you to choose from. So let me know what you think. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the book version of events. So this is kind of explored over across a couple books. I think the main bulk of it is told in Flawless. I'm not exactly sure because there's so many books. But yes, so let's talk about how it went down in the book version, obviously written by Sarah Shepard, because I think that's interesting because that's where they got their inspiration from, and to see kind of what they changed and how they went about it. So obviously the books came out prior to the show, and in the books they're in 6th grade when this happens, so this makes them 12 years old instead of 14 or 15 years old, which adds an even darker, just a bit of a kind of trigger warning, the book version is a lot darker than the show version of events, so just kind of giving you a bit of a heads up there, and also knowing that they were about 12 when this happened makes it even darker. So the girls are having their sleepover, but they're actually having it at Alison's house instead of Emily's house like it is in the show. And still kind of similar vibe, trying on each other's clothes and everything, and then Alison sees Toby watching through the window, and she says to the other girls, Toby's watching, and they all see him. So whereas in the show that ends up being a lie, in the book, that is exactly what happens. All the girls see him, they know that it was him looking in the window. So they're discussing what to do, and again, Alison comes up with this plan to scare Toby. And she says what she's going to do is steal one of his fireworks, and she is going to launch it near his treehouse. So yeah, a bit of a different thing. Like, she already knows in this version that it's a firework. Like, she knows that it is, and that is the intention, to kind of fire it near his treehouse where he hangs out. So like, they obviously changed that for the garage, and just kind of like scare him, spook him. That's the intention. And the other girls are like hesitant about it. They're like, there's so many ways that this could go wrong. Are we sure that we want to do this? But Alison, you know, she says, I'm going to do it. Like, she convinces them, okay. And she says that she's going to be the one to do it. So she actually goes out to Toby's house. So I guess they're more like neighbors in the books because they don't live anywhere near each other in the show. Because the girls actually stay behind. They all stay at Alison's house and they watch her do it from the window rather than all going down with her. They're not even there. Alison goes by herself and the other girls watch from the window as she does. So they watch as Alison sets the firework, and instead of launching it near the treehouse, she actually launches it at the treehouse. And it hits the treehouse, it kind of like explodes and everything, and a huge fire starts. And I don't know if it spreads to the house as well, or if it is just kind of like contained in, you know, the treehouse, but that's what happens. And obviously all the girls kind of like watch in horror, and Alison runs back and she's all panicked and she's like, it wasn't my fault. She's like clearly really kind of shaken up by this. So the girls then hear like these sirens, and obviously, you know, the police and the fire department and the ambulance and everything are coming to the scene, and Spencer is like, I want to go and see, I want to know what happened. And Alison kind of begs her not to, but she says, I'm going. She runs out of the house to just kind of see what's going on. And Alison goes after her, and they watch from Alison's garden or front garden as Jenna kind of gets like carried out of the burning treehouse and put into the ambulance and taken away. While they're stood in the front garden, and obviously the other three are up in the house still, Toby runs over and he is furious and he says, "I saw you, I know that it was you, and I'm going to tell the police." And Ali comes back and says, "I saw what you were doing in there. I saw you doing something horrible. And if you tell anyone that I set this fire, I'm going to expose it to absolutely everybody." So it's kind of a similar thing where she does threaten him into taking the fall, but what she is threatening him with is quite different. So Spencer asks Alison, she's kind of confused. She's like, "What did you see? Why is he willing to take the fall for this?" And Alison explains that when she went to the treehouse, what she saw was Toby sexually assaulting Jenna in the treehouse. And she was so shocked by this that she'd already lit the firework, and she was so kind of like shocked by what she saw that she didn't aim it properly and it went straight into the treehouse rather than just next to it like the original plan. Which obviously is incredibly different from the story that we get. The Toby and Jenna characters in the books are very, very different. Toby is the aggressor in this situation, and Jenna is actually like not a threat to Alison. She is quite nerdy and shy, and she's actually friends with Mona, so she's kind of like part of that kind of thing. So I'd be really interested to talk to the writers and kind of understand why they went in this different direction, kind of like reversed the roles and changed this. I definitely see why they made them older, because obviously knowing that this is what Toby was doing and also that Jenna is only supposed to be 12 at this time is absolutely like heartbreaking. And it's just, yeah, a completely different Jenna and Toby to the ones that we obviously see in the show. So I think maybe for ABC Family, they didn't want something as harrowing as that, especially, you know, within the first 2 episodes of this new show. So Alison says to Spencer, "You cannot tell anyone about this." And they go back into the house and she just says to the other 3 girls, like, everything is going to be fine. And again, similarly to the show, she makes friendship bracelets for them as a kind of promise to never tell anyone about what happened. So Toby is then sent to reform school in Maine, and Jenna attends a school for the blind in Philadelphia. So they obviously carried that over because in the show, she also goes to a school for the blind in Philadelphia. So then in the books, it's actually 3 years later. There's actually a bigger gap in the books. I think Alison just goes missing for 1 year in the show, but in the books she's missing for like 2 or 3, I think, like when we first meet them. Obviously in the pilot she's only been missing for a year, but in the books, in the first book, I'm pretty sure she's been missing for like 2 or 3 years. After the Jenna thing, Aria comes face to face with Jenna. She sees her at a class in Hollis College, an art class. So again, you see like how they took parts of the book to put into the show, because we see Aria and Jenna in like the pottery class together. But again, Jenna's like a completely different character to who she is in the book. So these 2 scenes are quite different, but they have a similar kind of plot to them, I suppose. They're talking and Aria feels really guilty, and so she's kind of about to admit that she was there that night and she was sort of involved, when Jenna actually confesses first, and she says it was all a plan. So she and Alison had actually planned this entire thing. So Jenna was obviously scared of Toby and like just traumatized by what he had done to her, and he would often like set off fireworks from his treehouse or like something like that in their garden, and his parents had said, "Look, if you set off any more fireworks, you're gone. We're gonna like send you away." So Jenna's like, "This is my chance." And she actually goes to Alison, and even though they aren't friends in the books, like she's obviously Jenna's friends with Mona and Ali is kind of like in the social hierarchy, they aren't in the same place, but they bond over having difficult siblings, like sibling troubles. And Alison agrees to help her. And while Jenna did end up being blinded by this, she actually doesn't regret it because it got Toby away from her. And she mentions to Aria that someone else was there that night and witnessed the Jenna thing. And Arya asks her, like, look, do you know who this is? Because obviously they're struggling with being stalked by A, so she thinks maybe this person could be A, but Jenna won't say who it is. It is then later revealed that this witness was Jenna's best friend, Mona Vanderwall. And after seeing this, after seeing the Jenna thing, and obviously Jenna was blinded, not knowing that it was a plot and a plan, she becomes A and goes after the girls in order to avenge her friend Jenna. Is that not crazy? Is that not so crazy compared to the version that we got in the show? I think this is so interesting, and I want to know what you guys think. Do you think this would have been a better plot and a better motive, or do you kind of prefer how it went down in the show? Because obviously the Toby we see in the show is not the Toby from the book. So if they had made him like that, then Toby wouldn't have gone on to be in the show for longer. I mean, to be fair, he wasn't ever supposed to be. I'm pretty sure one of the writers have said before he was supposed to die in season 1. And then when they saw like his chemistry with Troyan or something, then they kept him around. But obviously in the show, Toby is very lovable. He's very sweet. And that is not the Toby from the book. So I'm interested to know, would you keep it the way that it is in the show, or would you rather they had followed the books a little bit more? Because I do think that idea that Jenna and Alison planned it together and that Mona then saw this and then that was her motive for being A, I do think is really interesting compared to like what we got. So yeah, that is everything about the Jenna thing from the TV version, motives, everything like that, to the book version. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Which motive out of the ones I gave you do you think is the most likely? Do you have any other theories that you like the sound of? What do you think about the book scenario versus the TV scenario? And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.